So we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Cognos 2 session. I'm here from OIT to introduce our first speaker, Larry Kuhn, who is the manager for the Business Intelligence team within OIT and the manager for Office of Institutional Research IT. And we should each have a copy of the evaluation form that we're asking everybody to fill out so that we know how to improve the session in future years. And I have pens up here also if you need one to help fill that out. We'll collect those at the end. And we were asking if we will take questions until the end so we can get through the content. And with that, I'll welcome Larry.
Thank you, Chris. Hello. My voice left, it came back a little bit, so I'm doing a lot better. I'd like to introduce Ryan Sherman. He's the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Institutional Research and Decision Support. He'll be doing the heavy lifting for this presentation. I'm just sort of saying good for you guys. We're doing two Cognos presentations today because Cognos is a pretty powerful tool for doing reporting and analytics. The first presentation concentrated a little bit more on the reporting end. This presentation, we're going to start to get a little bit more on what we can really call analytics, getting into visualizations, getting into slicing and dicing data. So when we talk about business intelligence in general, the pyramid metaphor really works great. So down at the bottom of the pyramid, we have the operational reports, just like we've seen with any kind of IT system for the last 50 years. Right? I push this button, I get that report, it's pre-formatted, it doesn't really change. We just tell it what department or whatever we're looking for, we're going to get that information in a pre-configured way. But once we start to climb up that pyramid, we start to get into more of the power of these tools. We're able to take one tool and do things, slicing and dicing. I want to drill down, focus in on this, kind of spice away that. Give me, more detail here, bring in some additional stuff. One tool with the power to reconfigure itself like that is in the center of the power of a business intelligence tool. The other thing that we can do is more ad hoc queries. Reports that aren't defined yet, because you can tell a report, I want this information, that information, and it's a report that may have never been run before and never going to be run again. But you have a specific question that you want to answer. So these tools provide that. In addition to Cognos, I don't know if anybody's here for the DW query presentation 2 presentations ago. That would be another one of our tools for doing that type of reporting, being able to produce a report with your own definitions, your own columns. But as you start to climb up that pyramid even farther, you get into the ability to say, I don't even know what the question is I have, but I want to start plowing through the data to be able to get at stuff. So you're looking at mining data to say, what are the patterns that exist in this data? Statistically, what does this data look like? And how can we mine it for information that we may not have known was there? Also, predictive analytics. So take the data, the historical data that we have, take some assumptions, and project this out into the future. So we have an application in the Cognos suite called TM1, which is a predictive analytics tool. It's currently being used by the budget office for some of their budget forecasting. Also, we start to get more heavily into visualizations here. Rather than just straight data lined up in columns, we're starting to get more into graphics and charts with a lot of power and flexibility. Ryan will show you some of those issues. As you start to get even farther up, you start to get into dashboards. At a glance, holistic looks at the state of an organization or a school or department or whomever you are. So the idea behind a dashboard is it's at a glance. I know if everything's going well, if there's a problem area, I can drill down into that problem area and figure out what's going on there. So then you drill from the dashboard down to one of these reports that we're talking about. So this whole structure is being built here. Everything from looking in hindsight at what happened into looking holistically at the university, looking forward. All of this is provided by Cognos and other tools such as DW Query. The other way to think about this is that This is sort of the staff level looks at the reports. As you start to get farther up, managers slicing and dicing to executives to say, I want to know what's going on everywhere. And this tool is going to be able to provide that. Since we've implemented Cognos, we've done a lot of focus down here because every system we've implemented, KFS, you see path, which will come out at the end of this year, they don't come with their own reports. We have to write them. So those are coming down here. We're building up to these higher levels. Ryan will show you some of the student headcount reporting that we're doing up at this level. One thing, another metaphor is the iceberg metaphor. What you see in Cognos is really the part that's above the surface. Everything that's below the surface is all the heavy lifting we have to do to really make this information available and useful to you. Everything from knowing what the heck's out there, how do we look at it, to how do we provide access to it in terms of pieces in Cognos that grab the data and provide it to the end reports and provide a consistent view of everything. And data governance and data quality come into that as well. Okay, we have 100 silos of data. How do we bring those together? How do we agree on what the facts are? How do we ensure that the data that we have meet our quality standards, are really representing the state of the university, are problematic, because we could have been using data like student data where in the registrar's office we've shown a light on it from one direction for 40 years and it looks great from that direction. But once we use it in the student data warehouse and start looking at it from this angle, we see all the problems that we never saw. So a lot of this work is below the surface, but it's really important for bringing data up above the surface where you can turn it into information. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, and he'll show you some of the student headcount analytics. What you're going to see here is some of the what's used in the Office of Institutional Research. They're primarily concerned with reporting the university as a university, not data on specific students, but aggregate totals on students as a whole, and also the certain demographic criteria. So Ryan will show you some of the things that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. So for those who, the Office of Institutional Research doesn't get involved with research grants. So what we're doing is the research on the institution itself. And so we're supporting the provost and the chancellor in terms of talking about the full breadth of what is the enrollment counts that the campus has, but also what the plans are for the future and where the campus wants to go in terms of its strategic plan, trying to pull the supporting data together for that. So what we have on our student reports, they're on the portal. They basically are launched from the portal, in which if you have the appropriate access and authorization, again, because this is student data, and because of some of these reports you can get to small cell size, you have to have FERPA training and stuff like that. So it's not something that's not publicly available. So that's why it's on the portal, password restricted, and with an educational need to know type of access. So with that, I first launched our student headcount enrollment report. And this report is kind of, because we are connected in many ways with the campus budget, you'll see kind of a focus on what is state funded, what is self-supporting programs, what is the general campus versus health science, what's undergrad versus grad, what the different class standings are. But what we put together, and I'll just quickly flip through these charts also, okay, what's the funding in terms of our self-supporting programs barely register relative to our general on major campus trends. Health sciences is relatively small. Our undergrad numbers are about 20%, they account for 80% or so of our enrollments, and the various class standing or student levels you can see kind of displayed there on the charts. And you can see that we have, we grew a lot of freshmen all of a sudden, but then we were trying on the downward trend, and that's planned. We're trying to decrease our undergrad freshman numbers while we are working on growing our graduate programs as part of the strategic plan. And you can, but we're about to quickly, so this is the default starting point. But now I can just quickly say, okay, what I'm really interested in is looking at undergrad, grad. just run that. And this will give me a 5-year trend report on our undergrad enrollments and our graduate enrollments over the last 5 years. You can see our last year we grew 430 about undergrad, about 360 grad for almost 700 or almost 800 total enrollments. But over the last 5 years, we've grown almost 6,000 students, the vast majority of that being at the undergrad level. We can quickly just switch this over to look at the distribution side of it. So here's the actual percentages of undergrad to grad, and you can see, again, our back here we were at 18% graduate. We dropped to 17%, but that's a rise from the 16% level when the state was asking us to add a lot of additional California resident undergrads in 2016 and in 2017. But so that was the 5-year trend. I'm going to quickly push this out and look at the 10-year trend here. Because I'm just exploring. This is part of, these tools are kind of put out there so a person can kind of explore the student enrollments and follow a question they may have. And so here one can see, okay, here's the undergrad and the graduate. Again, very similar in terms of our distributions, although campus has a goal of getting above 20% in terms of our graduate enrollments and making efforts to do that. But then it's like, okay, well, let's look at this a little bit differently. And let's look at it in terms of URM status. So students, have we increased our underrepresented minority student enrollments over this time period? And so now we have this breakdown. Again, nested between undergrad and grad. And we can see, boy, yeah, we went from 16% underrepresented minority students in 2009 to we're running about 29%. So an increase of about over 10%, 10 percentage points, and our 10-year average being about 25%. You can also see the growth in our international students over this time period, where we went from 2.6% to we're now running about 17% in terms of our fall enrollments in undergrad numbers. So that must mean something. I mean, basically, what's that impact if you think about it in terms of pedagogy, student success, student and graduation rates? Well, let's go check. We have the report. So I'm going to go over here. So that gave me a framework to think, oh gosh, we have these changes happen in terms of our percentage distribution of students. I wonder what impact that has on our success outcomes. So I'm going to go to the undergrad retention and graduation report. And this gives me a slice of students and their characteristics, their second-year retention rate, which is kind of the first big gamut of getting success, passing through that first year, coming back the second year, how successful were we bringing them back. But then also looks at the 4-year graduation rates, or the normative graduation rates, and also looks at the 6-year graduation rates, which is kind of the official federal benchmark. So I'm going to quickly jump over here to first-year retention. And again, we have it kind of already broken out with the default view of things in terms of ethnicity and first generation. Well, let me look at it in terms of, I'll collapse the ethnicities and leave first generation. So URM, underrepresented minority students, that would be American Indian, Black, Hispanic, and Hawaiian Pacific Islander. So if I'm looking at how many students came back for their start of the second year, we can see that, the URM ethnicities, 89%, 90, kind of about 90%. The non-URM ethnicities, about 93, 94% at different times. So basically a 5-year average of 90 to 94. So we have an achievement gap of 4 percentage points between the non-URM first-time freshmen and the URM first-time freshmen. Overall, the campus has about a 93% retention rate. So you can see that with, okay, we have an achievement gap with URM. So let's look at it compared to first generation underrepresented minorities or the not first generation. And so one can see, almost looking at here, not first generation URM, 93% sounds very similar to the non-URM ethnicity rate of 93% there as well. So it kind of is a combination stacking point of, are they underrepresented, but are they the first in their family to go to college and try to work on a 4-year degree? And that's what basically that first generation means, is that neither of my parents earned a 4-year baccalaureate degree. And so you can see that in general, first URM, first generation, the 5-year average is about 90%, but overall campus it's about 93%. So there is this achievement gap but we've been getting better, I'll put it that way, in terms of in more recent years, closing the gap a bit. It's still there, it's still kind of 5% if you look from first generation to first generation, URM, non-URM. But it does kind of say, okay, we have something that we need to kind of look into here and say, what might be these factors that, or majors maybe, that, or is there a difference between what majors these students are going into? So we have a report for that. And what I'm going to go into now is our major rankings report. And it looks very similar to our major student enrollment report, but what it's going to do is give the top 10 majors, or top 5 or top 3 by different student characteristics. So by default, it breaks it just by undergrad and grad. So if you're ever wondering what the top 10 undergrad majors are, in order, they're biosci, computer science, business econ, undeclared, psychology, math, criminology, business admin, mechanical engineering, and psychology for the undergrads. Again, I'm focusing just on the undergrads at this point. So I'm going to throw in some additional filters and just kind of limit what I'm seeing here. So instead of looking at both undergrad and grad, I'm going to focus in on undergrad, and then I'm going to say, okay, is there a difference between the URM, and let's just kind of keep it focused on the top 5 majors. And behind the scenes, what's going on here is Cognos is running against what is called OLAP queues, basically in terms of speed of response. And so everything is pre-aggregated, and the data is getting sliced and diced on the back end. And so in looking at this, well, biosci seems to be well represented for the domestic students, whether they're underrepresented or not underrepresented. International students have a higher focus on business economics, mathematics, or economics. But biosci seems to be a big popular major here on campus, if you didn't know that already. But then it kind of changes a bit. For the underrepresented, psychology comes into play, criminology, law, and society. A chunk of them are coming in as undeclared, not wanting to set a major the first year. And then political science as being the 5th most popular. But the other domestic ethnicity, biosci, again is top, but computer science kicks in. And then again, undeclared, not wanting to necessarily set what major they're in right now and wanting to get a feel for things. But then business economics kicks in, and psychology and social behavior shows up as well. So, oh, well, we have biosci, popular in both majors. Well, let's explore that some more. Now I'm going to get down to the specific major type stuff. And I'm going to look at major migration report. This kind of shows me how a student who starts in a given major progresses through 6 years of their education, and how many stay in the major, or where do they end up, or do they stay at UCI? Let me just minimize this a bit more. Okay, so it lands on art, but let's change it to biosci. And so what's interesting here overall, so this is the main big major, the biological sciences. I have the freshman cohort starting in 2012, but I'm going to roll in 3 years of cohorts and make it a more robust view of entering students who are starting biosci and see how it flows through. So now we're looking at 3,283 students, new freshmen who started in bio-sci in those 3 years. And you can see, so they all start in bio-sci, but so this is the very beginning, first fall semester of their first year. This is the fall semester of their second year, if they're here. So these folks left already. I mean, this UCI didn't work out for them yet. At this point. They decided not to re-enroll. This is the start of the third year, start of the fourth, start of the fifth type of thing, which means the end of the fourth. So most people graduate in 4 years. That's where you see all the first chunk of degrees coming in play. So when the color changes to blue, they're earning a degree at UCI. When it's in the gold or yellow color, it is that they're enrolled, still enrolled, and again, the dark color is that they left the university. So in general, we're seeing, of those 3,283 students who started in the main bio-sci major, only about a third of them actually earned a degree in bio-sci by 6 years. We have 13% who did not enroll. The big receiving degree was public health is the second, and then social science as majors. But now, okay, do I see a difference? Now, just because we're short, time's running out here, I'll just focus on the URM break. So I'm going to do a Sanity chart for URM students, non-URM students, and see if there's a different flow of what majors they go into and their success rates. So first off, we had about 3,200 cohorts. Well, of that, 722 are URM students who started as new freshmen in the program. You can see that 1 out of 5 basically left UCI when they started in bio-sci. Only just under 25% actually earned a degree in bio-sci as a URM student. If they didn't leave the university and get the degree in bio-sci, they went to social sciences or public health, similar to the overall picture of things. These are very specific School of Biology majors when they get to be small things like that, but it gives you a flow for how everything went. For the non-URM students, we have 37% who earned a degree. So we're going from, a 20%, a low 20% to a high 30% earning a bio-sci degree. 15% going to public health, 13% going to, or 50% going to public health, 13% to social sciences, and only 10% leaving. So double the amount of URM percentage-wise or leave the university and do not stay around, whereas 10% of the non-URM students have only left. And so more of them are staying here on campus. And so kind of what we try to do with these tools, focused on over our student enrollment data and other degree flow data, is to see what can we do to help people kind of explore and answer some of their own questions using the BI tool set that Larry introduced first. With that, we'll kind of ask for any questions. One thing to say is that these Sanity charts or these flow charts, these are not a Cognos delivered graphic. We basically use Cognos to pull the data, put it up behind the scenes, and then feed it to a D3 graphic engine, which is called Iceberg. Thank you. If you have any, and again, we're at the booth, and if you have any questions, you can come around and track us down.
Thank you.